Otterby and heard the siren go off and turned around the bridge to go to it.
Spring of '56. That'll be fun just to go back and look at the newspaper articles about that fire. I know that our guys were in the second.
You never saw any newspaper articles about Dublin.
Okay.
Same with the sports teams. It was all City of Columbus. That's the only thing that really got the write-ups from this paper.
Sure.
Now it's just the opposite.
Yeah. Did you guys some of the runs that people have told me about is the triple fatal auto accident on Riverside Drive. Car hit another car and burned up 3 teenage.
Jack Price was in.
I wouldn't know.
No,
before that. It was
yeah.
before I started. But
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
Yeah,
one.
I did. It would go back. Let's see. Jack was in high school, and he's about 4 years older. So it would go back in the 40s. It was just south of Henderson Road.
No, maybe they're talking about the beer truck. Was it the
Well,
beer,
there's
beer
two of them.
truck?
I was
Yeah, the
asking
beer
about
truck
that
where
as
two
well.
guys died in.
Yeah.
Because I've seen pictures of it. They were still in the truck on a curve just north.
No, we talked a little bit about it the time before.
Yeah.
That how it affected some of the people, particularly our dad, because he was in on that run. And one of them that survived that, and it was a barber in town. And he's retired now,
What was his name?
Jack Price.
Okay.
But
He was in the car and survived.
yeah, he was in the car and survived. But he's in such shape that he probably couldn't.
He couldn't tell you.
I don't even know if he wasn't. I never talked to him about it because I went to him for several years. And I never talked to him about this. And I don't think he ever talked that much about it. I'm sure he was in high school at the time. And so it had to have been in the 40s. We wouldn't even have had a emergency squad at that time. They probably took the fire truck.
And the first squad they got, Corbin Funeral Home, who became Rutherford Corbin, donated an old ambulance, quote, hearse to them, and Ferguson and Plain City gave them a cot, and that's how they originally got in business.
So talk to me about, because you were big into EMS, as I've read. Talk to me about that transition, because when I first started out as a fire service, and then I've been reading about Doc Whitaker training the men in first aid. Is that accurate? How
I
did
have
first
no
aid?
idea. That would have
Okay.
been before me, but he was an old Army doctor, so his methods were pretty rough.
Yeah.
To
Were
be
they?
truthful with
He
you.
did. I can remember my dad's first aid book that they used in the
I gave
training.
that to American Red Cross in Columbus.
Yeah, and I can't think.
From the 30s.
He always referred to it as a wound, not a wound.
A wound.
And Dr. Whitaker called it a wound.
One of the emergency fire lines was in Doc Whitaker's house, and Doc Carr's number was one off from the fire department, 8383 compared to 8382. And then he saw somebody call and they said, Dr. Carr, and he said, get your finger in the right hole. Teed him off because they were calling there for Dr. Carr, and he was a doctor also.
Then the Dublin nightclub was one number off of that.
So
Oh,
tell
was
me
that
about-
right? I didn't know.
Yeah, the Dublin nightclub was one off of that because we lived on Monterey for a while. And when we came home one night, somebody was going out of our back door and was running down along at the cemetery there. And we immediately called what we thought was the only emergency number we had with the fire department. And as it ended up, I dialed the Dublin nightclub. And two guys came running over from Dublin nightclub. So Dr. Carr's, the fire department, and the Dublin nightclub, I think one was 8381, 8382, and 8383 were the three numbers.
Which was one of the bigger fires. In fact, this was out of service, but we brought it over and stuck it in a draft out of the river, and Arlington laid a line up to some of it.
That's right, I forgot that as
We
one,
was
as
fighting it with a ladder from
one of the
from
bigger
Sheriff.
fires in the 60s.
And the problem with it was they started out a little barbecue stand on the way to the zoo. People would stop there to eat. And each time they added on, the roof went over the top of the other one. So you actually had 5 roofs above, and that's where the fire was at. You just couldn't get to it to stop it.
And how long was that fire? I mean, that was a long fight for you guys, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It went, most of the night, it was in, well, I see, they hadn't closed up yet.
No, they were in the
They were
building
in
when the
building,
fire
saw the
started.
fire coming out of lighting receptacle. And it was, I know I had to leave to go to work Columbus, and they were there most of the day.
So tell me, walk me through that fire and that scene, and explain it to me like you would a firefighter. And because I've heard kind of civilian versions of, the scene was chaotic, but talk to me about
Well,
the details.
I asked Chief Shriver if we could take a line and go in the south door off the parking lot. And he said, okay. So Alan Hittepool and Dan Stormont, Dan was the chief for a little bit, was with me, and we got in there as far as we could. And we couldn't get to where the fire broke out yet, but I had all this heat above me. And I said, it's the first time I ever used my brain instead of my heart on a fire. I said, we gotta get out of here. Because you knew that was coming down. Just all that fire up above. We didn't have any fire in that hallway we were in, but it was all up above.
Huh.
To keep in mind,
They'd just gotten a new, can't remember the name of it, the high expansion foam generator. And they stuck out in the window of the cooking area, the kitchen, and every appliance in there up this high was in fine shape. Everything above that had burnt, where the foam had kind of settled down, and that was kind of ironic. It was a waste of the foam, but it was a good chance to try to use it too. They never used it before on a fire.
keep in mind, there's no hydrants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're getting everything from the river, and that's where this
Actually,
is.
tankers more than that.
Yeah.
You were bringing in tankers for that one?
Yeah, because it was a couple hours for the document going to the river.
And what kind of line were you fighting with? Were you taking the boosters, 2.5, inch and a half? Inch and a half line.
Yeah. 2.5 was all we had to lay for supply lines.
Sure. What kind of nozzle were you using back then? Was it all smoothbore, or were you in the fog yet?
No, it was using fogs.
You were using fog?
Yeah. In fact, the old Ford had 2 fog nozzles, Navy fog nozzles. And it was a double-handed. You could, one notch would be a straight stream, pull all the way back, and you get a spray nozzle. That's when they used aboard ships. Because that was the first actual spray nozzles that was ever used was on board ships. And those things were heavier than get out because made of brass. And so you could use it as a battering ram also. So they were pretty handy to use, but boy, you got tired holding them. I know that. So we could have even been using one of those in there, but I know it was a fog nozzle because we were working our way down the hallway. Got almost to the kitchen. I said, yeah, I think we better get out of here.
Just for fun, and this won't be part of the interview, we're currently working on some just fire attack stuff like you do all the time. How many guys did you put on a hand line back then?
Whatever you had, 1 to 3.
1 to 3.
If it was 2.5, which very seldom used because never had the water, you might have. Whoever showed up, it might have only been 4 guys that showed up, it might be 20.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
but that's what taught me early on. Mutual aid, and then went to automatic response, because I think what they're forgetting in these arguments on automatic response is how it affects your ISO rating.
And
If
positively?
you don't have a reserve engine, they take your best engine out of service and call it reserve. So that's where you lose points. But if you're on automatic response, like with Columbus, and they have all kinds of extra engines, you can count, and you would use those in case something happened. You can count that as your extra engine, and you also get 90% credit for anything responded on an automatic response instead of 100%. So
Yeah.
sometimes your automatic response, you get more credit from them than some equipment on scene, at least back then.
Do you ever respond to the Rio?
No,
No. I hear stories of,
took it to convention a couple of times.
yeah, I hear stories of the Rio pulling up on scene and then the handlebar had been broken and, they civilian would be bringing up the firefighter with the handlebar still in his hand because he dropped him on Riverside
No,
Drive.
that was happened at the railroad tracks in Linworth because I was driving, and the guy on the back was holding on to the bar on the old GMC, the '53 GMC, and when it hit the railroad tracks, the bar it only had about an inch metal screw in it. That's all was in there holding it. It wasn't a bolt that plated in, just metal screws. And when it hit the tracks, he came off and he slid with the snow on the road. He slid down the road, and some delivery truck says, "What? You all right? Can I help you?" He said, "Yeah, take me to the fire." I said, "Come on down to the fire." We
Yeah,
had
the idea
a
what
working
fire
fire.
was.
We was going in with Sharon then, or Worthington.
Okay, that's very funny.
Oh, I remember, it looked like a snowman coming down. What the heck happened to you? Fell off the damn truck. When you hit the railroad track. Threw that bar down. He came in carrying the bar. That was the funny part.
That's awesome.
And of course, the best part about that is that's the guy that eventually my wife took off with.
Didn't think you was gonna bring that up.
Oh, I saw you sitting over there going through your mind.
Well, I just.
That happened just before the nightclub fire because he was in the crowd at the nightclub fire.
Gotcha.
Quit the department.
What were some of the runs that you remember that really turned out well? I asked a standard couple of questions to everybody. What runs turned out really well for you?
Anytime somebody survived,
Any specific one that you remember? Could tell us?
I'm trying to go way back and think of one instead of the 70s. Of course, for you.
70s
that's
is
way-
fine. Yeah. Whatever.